to authors from all over the world. And if you're about to pick your next book, your next read, or the next book to put in your stack, check this one out. It's called The Hot Marble. We're going to find out about that book in a minute. And guess what? I have the author here as well. The author is Rosemary Althoff. Welcome, Rosemary.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting me.
Oh, it's my great pleasure. By the way, here's the book cover again, The Hot Marble. We're going to find out about that in a minute. Tell our viewers where you're located, Rosemary.
I am in New Orleans, Louisiana, and President Biden is speaking here today, so the traffic is awful.
Oh, my goodness, yeah. At Tulane University. Is that right, downtown?
That's correct.
Or is it a little bit out of town?
That's not out of town. It's right in the center.
Right in the center. I've always loved Tulane, and my cousin went there, and I've always had my soft spot for Tulane. What was your journey to get you into New Orleans? Where'd you start?
I began with my husband in Ohio. We lived there for 30-some years, and when my husband retired from the ministry, my kids said, "You have to live near one of us so we can take care of you." Well, I had two in New York City, and I had one in New Orleans, and they said, "You can afford New Orleans," so they began to move us here.
Right. I don't know if I could afford it because I would eat out every single meal because the food is so good there.
So you've been to New Orleans?
Yeah, I think it's one of the greatest cities in America. I love to visit there.
It's got a big personality.
Now, here's the book cover, The Hot Marble. I understand it's a series. Tell us about the book, how you came to write it, and whatever you want to say about it.
I grew up in a space family. My father was in charge of the engineers who made the electric system for the Saturn V that went to the moon. My sister told the James D. Webb telescope what to think. And so I've had this run of science in my family, and I've always wanted to write science fiction since I was very small. So I just chose random concepts like gravitational resonance, teleportation, a singularity, and a little round thing that looked like a hot marble, but it's a neural network, and every atom and connection inside tells the location of a place in the universe. So this is the technology, the name, behind a object that starts a very big story about 4 young people who get transported to another planet and caught in a big war.
Now, the tricky thing about science fiction is you have to make it believable, like it can really happen. And it sounds like with your background that you know something about that.
I've studied through years. I remember when there was only one mention of gravitational resonance on the entire internet in a Google search. And now there's tens of thousands of them. But I started back in about 2008 looking up gravitational resonance and following it on the sciences until I learned that they're using it now as an idea for creating warp speed vehicles.
And I guess if we read your book, we'll know what gravitational resonance is.
I don't talk about the science too much. I throw it out there and use it as a structure for a very human adventure with children and young adults. It's made for adults and young adults. And children and young adults are getting into terrible trouble and trying to find their way through it.
Now, here's again the cover of the first book, The Hot Marble. Did you know it was going to be a series when you were writing it?
No. My purpose when I first started was just get one book out. Yeah. But the more I wrote, the more I realized the story was bigger than one book. So I have it at 4 books. The 4th is in progress. And if people like it and they buy it, I'm willing to write some more books.
Another series, hopefully. I love a book series, is why I would say that.
Yes, I have characters grow up and they have their own adventures as they get older.
By the way, here's the second book. I think The Cave Chamber, and then The Horned Edge, and the one that's coming out, Silence to Singing.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to compliment you on the covers because they're all very good. It just pulls you in. And I always say, how do you pick your next book? Well, a lot of times we pick our next book by the cover if it's intriguing. And second thing that helps me pick books is if they've been noticed and maybe won some awards, which yours has. Is that correct?
Yes, they have. The Hot Marble won second place in the Living Water Awards. The book that's called The Horned Edge won first place in the same award category.
Wow.
I have not submitted them for many, many awards. They're traditionally published by Winged Publications, and some of the contests that I have not been able to enter are for self-published authors. So I will be looking for other contests for Silence to Singing. Hopefully get that through a few.
Yeah. Some people say, oh, awards, they don't matter. Well, there's millions and millions of books out there. How do we pick our next book? Well, one, hopefully people will see your books on our talk show and pick your book. But yeah, it helps with the awards and the covers and the detail you put into everything. How are they Christian sci-fi novels?
I have an atheist physicist wrestling with God.
Nice.
In my younger years, I was an atheist. And one time, just to mock the Bible, I opened it up and pointed to a verse in the middle, and it said, "The fool says there is no God." And I said, oh boy.
Oh my goodness. God's talking to you.
Anyway, over time, I became a Christian. I was involved in the Jesus movement of the 70s.
Yeah.
I married a man who became a pastor. And so I've been involved in church and all the shenanigans churches have, and I've had a lot of life.
Yeah.
So my book is Christian in the extent in which the characters have to fight the angelic and the demonic worlds while they're fighting a war on another world.
Wow. That's quite a complex battles going on. I read a lot of books where people are struggling with their faith, and I like those because I think all of us struggle with our faith from time to time, and it's good to see characters that are built that do that, and it's always interesting to see how they come out the other end.
Well, I'm not fond of pat answers, and not everybody has to have this merry little Christian glow.
Nice. Now, by the way, I have your web address on the screen. It's RosemaryAlthoff.com, if I have that right.
That's correct.
And what would our viewers find there?
The first page they'll find is a list of my books, the ones that are published. I have other pages that are about me, and a page to sign up on my newsletter, and blogs that I tune in about once a month or once every 2 weeks and write a good blog. Mm-hmm.
That's nice. I love to, when I get into a book, especially a series, I always try to learn about the author as much as I can, so it's very generous of you to put that out there on your webpage and tell us about you. Now, you say the books are on there that are published. Are there more coming? Have you written more?
Yes, I have. Besides the fourth book in the series, Silence to Singing, I have 2 more underway. Mm-hmm. I have a legal thriller that I'm writing with a fellow author named Xavier DeSoto, who writes detective mysteries. Mm-hmm. We decided to write a legal thriller because of his passion for justice. Mm. And we are having a grand time. We've got a rough manuscript, and we're plugging in the action details.
Now, Rosemary, we have a lot of viewers who are trying to get their first book written. I mean, I hear from so many people they're writing, trying to finish. Can you tell us about your discipline? Do you sit down every morning at 6 a.m. and start writing?
Well, I get up about 6, but then I check my email because that's when most of it floods in.
Yeah.
And I'm still fresh.
Yeah.
I do administration of my house and my affairs and this and that. And then about 9:30 or 10, almost every morning, I sit down and start to write. Not every day is a real productive day. There may be days where I only write 400 words because I just can't seem to get any more out. Some days I'll write 1,500. I
Wow.
know people who write 5,000 a day. I can't do that.
Yeah. That's amazing. So I guess you would say to our viewers, just write every day. Sit down and write. It doesn't matter if you're productive or not productive. You just get some words down.
Just get some words down. And some days are spent planning, but I try to plan my book not at writing time.
Ah, yeah. I was going to ask you that next. Do you only write your book when you're sitting there typing, or if you're walking around doing your chores and stuff? Are you creating your stories?
Sometimes, especially when I'm driving, things will come into my head and I'll like have a whole progression of a chapter form, but then I have to sit down and write it. So the writing gets done from about 10 to 12:30 or 1, and the rest of the day I have chores and relationships and things like that.
Yeah, but you're always writing in your head.
Yeah.
Now, this is, there's 4 books, and by the way, I'm just going to run through them again real quick. Here's the covers. Should one read them in order? Is that important?
No, you can read each one individually, or you can pick one that you just like the cover better.
Nice. I like that. I always have to go in order. That's just one of my quirks. I always go in order. Rosemary, we're about out of time, but I just want to give you a minute to say anything you want about your books, about you, about the world, anything you'd like to talk about.
Well, I find that the world is a very large and dangerous place, and everybody's caught up in one war or another, whether it's personal or greater, and yet there's more than that. There's a adventure beyond the war, and you're free to plug into him or not. And the enemy may try to recruit you, but he is always waiting for you to come to him.
Very good. Message well delivered. Rosemary, thank you so much for coming on the show, and I hope you'll come back again and again.
I plan to. We can't wait till book 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 come out.
Very good. All right, our guest is Rosemary Althoff, and check out her web address, rosemaryalthoff.com, and find out more about her. Most of all, order her books and do what I do. I never order one book. I always order 5 and give them away to my friends and family and people. I like people to be reading what I'm reading at the same time. Thank you, Rosemary.
Thank you so much.
And we'll be back with more authors right after this.